A researcher has spent months proving they belong here. A university degree, a formal letter from an accredited institution, a written statement of exactly what they intend to study, reviewed and approved before anyone let them near the door. They pass through Vatican security. Their credentials are checked. An admission card is issued. They are standing inside one of the most mythologized archives on Earth. Records connected to popes, kings, wars, trials, and centuries of European diplomacy stretch out around them. More than 80 kilometers of shelving holding material dating back 1,200 years. And there are still documents inside these walls this researcher is not allowed to see. So what exactly can someone with the right credentials actually request here? What remains permanently, or at least currently, off limits? And is there really such a thing as a Vatican document nobody outside these walls is permitted to read? For most of the last 3.5 centuries, this place carried a name that made all of that sound even more sinister. The Vatican Secret Archive. Not a nickname, not an internet rumor. That was its actual official title, printed on church documents and academic citations for generations. A secret archive, sanctioned and named by the Vatican itself. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. In the Latin of the period when that name took hold, secretum didn't mean hidden, forbidden, or classified. The way modern English uses the word secret. It came from secernere, to separate or set apart, and it described an archive kept distinct from other church collections, reserved specifically for the Pope's own use and that of the officials he personally appointed. European sovereigns of the era kept their own secret archives in exactly this sense, meaning simply their private ones. For over 300 years, that distinction got lost on almost everyone outside a small circle of scholars. Novelists and conspiracy theorists built entire mythologies on those two words without ever asking what the Vatican itself had actually meant by them. By 2019, Pope Francis decided the confusion had gone on long enough. In an apostolic letter titled, fittingly, Historical Experience, he explained that the word secret had taken on what he called a prejudicial sense of being hidden, not to be revealed, reserved for a select few, when that had never been the institution's actual character. So he restored what he described as the archive's original name, the Vatican Apostolic Archive. The name changed. The archive itself and everything inside it didn't. So just how much is actually in there? According to the archive's own published figures, the collection spans over 85 linear kilometers of shelving, some of it stored 2 stories underground in a reinforced vault beneath the Vatican Museum's Cortile della Pigna. It holds more than 600 separate archival collections, with materials stretching from the 8th century up through the 20th. Somewhere inside that almost incomprehensible volume of parchment and paper sit some of the most consequential documents in European history. But volume alone doesn't answer the question everyone actually wants answered. Who gets to walk in and request any of it? Since Pope Leo XIII opened its doors to outside scholars in 1881, the archive has been accessible, at least in principle, to qualified researchers of any nationality or faith. But accessible comes with real conditions vetted through a formal application before a single admission card is ever issued. And even with that card in hand, a researcher cannot simply wander the storerooms. Requests are submitted for specific cataloged material, retrieved and delivered to a reading room rather than browsed by hand among the shelves. None of that sounds like a place hiding forbidden gospels. It sounds like an extremely well-organized, well-guarded historical research library. But that still doesn't answer what a qualified researcher genuinely cannot see. Because since 1924, the Vatican has followed a specific internal practice for deciding what to open. Material becomes available by pontificate, released as a block once a specific pope's records clear a set chronological threshold. As of right now, in 2026, that threshold sits at the end of the pontificate of Pope Pius XII, meaning consultation is currently permitted for material up through October of 1958. Anything from later pontificates remains closed to outside researchers, not because of any single dramatic secret, but because the Vatican's own release policy simply hasn't reached that far yet, which meant, until recently, one particular set of records stayed locked away longer than almost any other, and for reasons far more charged than ordinary archival timing. The papacy of Pius XII spanned the Second World War, the Holocaust, and one of the most fiercely argued questions in modern church history: exactly what the Vatican knew and exactly what it did or didn't say publicly while millions of Jews were being murdered across Europe. For decades, that argument ran almost entirely on second-hand testimony and fragments referenced elsewhere because the primary documents themselves remained sealed. In 2019, Pope Francis announced the Pius XII material would open ahead of the normal chronological schedule, and the doors were unlocked in March of 2020, after Vatican archivists had spent roughly 14 years preparing and cataloging the material for outside access. More than 150 historians and researchers had already signed up before it opened. Sergio Pagano, the archive's own prefect at the time, told reporters plainly that the Church had, in his words, no reason to fear history. Scholars didn't wait quietly once the doors opened. Teams from institutions including the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum arrived to comb through newly available correspondence, internal memos, and diplomatic cables. And the debate everyone expected to finally end didn't end at all. Some of what researchers found reinforced existing evidence of quiet, behind-the-scenes efforts: individual convents and religious houses sheltering Jewish families, discreet diplomatic pressure applied through back channels. Other material reinforced long-standing criticism of Pius's public silence, moments where a direct, forceful condemnation might plausibly have been made and wasn't. Historians on opposing sides of this argument both found material to work with. Neither side found a single document that settled the question outright. The archive didn't hand historians a verdict. It handed them thousands of pages of primary evidence, and the argument simply moved onto sturdier ground than it had ever stood on before. That's not the only document inside these walls capable of reshaping historical debate, and the next one wasn't locked away deliberately at all. In September of 2001, a researcher named Barbara Frail was working through material connected to the trial of the Knights Templar when she found a parchment that appeared to have been simply misfiled, sitting in the wrong place in the catalog for roughly 700 years. It recorded secret hearings held at the French castle of Chinon in 1308. According to Frail's published research, the document showed that Pope Clement V had privately absolved the Templar leadership, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay, of the specific charge of heresy, even as those same leaders continued facing prosecution and eventual execution under relentless political pressure from the King of France. It's worth being precise about what that actually means, because popular retellings tend to flatten it into something bigger than it is. The document doesn't declare the Templars innocent of everything, and it doesn't erase 7 centuries of Templar mythology in one stroke. It records absolution specifically on the charge of heresy, alongside acknowledgement of lesser irregularities the Templars had admitted to under interrogation. What it does show, in the Pope's own recorded words, is that the full picture was considerably more complicated than guilty and abandoned, the version of the story that stuck for 700 years, partly because nobody had actually found this page. Nobody had hidden it. The Vatican simply hadn't properly catalogued it yet. So, if scholars really can access material like this, what genuinely remains off-limits today? The honest answer involves far less mystery and far more ordinary archival logistics than most people expect. Beyond the simple chronological cutoff at 1958, categories of material stay closed for reasons that have nothing to do with concealment. Records that haven't yet been cataloged and prepared for safe handling, material touching the privacy of individuals who may still be alive, sensitive diplomatic correspondence involving other governments, and the sheer logistical scale of processing millions of individual documents largely by hand, one folder at a time. That's a meaningfully different answer than the Vatican is hiding forbidden knowledge. It's closer to how any major national archive operates anywhere in the world, wrapped in several extra centuries of mystique that one misunderstood Latin word only made worse. It's also worth being precise about something else. The Vatican isn't one single warehouse of everything the Church has ever produced. The Apostolic Archive is a distinct institution from the Vatican Apostolic Library next door, which holds an entirely separate collection of manuscripts and printed books, and separate again from various dicasteries' own internal, non-public files. When people talk about the Vatican's secret documents, as though it's all one undifferentiated vault, they're usually collapsing several genuinely different institutions into a single, more dramatic idea than the reality supports. So picture that researcher again, standing in the reading room, admission card resting on the desk in front of them. They can request real, extraordinary material connected to popes, wars, trials, and diplomatic crises that shaped the map of Europe. What they cannot do is walk the shelves freely, or request whatever their imagination suggests might be hidden somewhere further back in the dark. The Vatican Apostolic Archive was never the vault of fantasy conspiracies its old name accidentally suggested to generations of outsiders, but it was never an ordinary open library either. Its real fascination sits in the space between those two extremes: genuinely extraordinary historical material sitting beside genuinely ordinary restrictions, with some of the most consequential records in modern church history remaining invisible to the outside world for exactly as long as the Vatican's own release schedule says they must. Somewhere past October of 1958, on shelves this researcher cannot yet request sit records that historians decades from now will eventually build entire books around, the moment the Vatican's own calendar finally lets them in. Thank you for spending this time uncovering this story with me. There are so many real documents hiding in plain sight behind the Church's oldest institutions, still waiting to be found. If you'd like to keep discovering them, consider subscribing to Sacred Heart, because there are many more stories like this one still waiting to be told.